Tathastu ICS. My name is Pooja Sharma and today I am going to take your DNA session, right? So this is the front page of our The Hindu newspaper today. Again, another devastating news is there. Helicopter crashes, kills 7 on a Char Dham route just after the incidents which taken place in Ahmedabad. This is the QR code for the Telegram group from where you can access the PDF files of these DNA. So let's see which important news we are going to cover today. So today's newspaper was filled with subjective news basically. So okay, which are actually more important for you from mains point of view. So let's understand which are these news. First is actually based on a news based on a context actually recently off the coast of Kerala. An accident happened and that accident was actually saved by our Indian Coast Guard and Indian Navy. In that context, we have this particular editorial, which is actually focusing on the India's maritime firefighting capabilities. So what is the core of this particular news? What are the maritime firefighting capabilities of India? Okay. Now, we are talking about the peacetime firefighting capabilities. We are not talking about the wartime capabilities. And the title of the editorial is Fire on Water. So, we are going to understand. So, this is going to be a part of, you can use it in disaster management also. Basically, this article is beneficial for you from GS3 point of view. Now, our second news is actually revolves around this recent tragedy that happened in Ahmedabad. India needs a sincere aircraft accident investigation. We all know that now whatever happened recently, there is going to be an investigation based on that. So, we are going to understand which institutions are going to be involved in the investigation, and we need to understand how these investigations are going to go, and we are going to analyze are these investigations are going to be very independent or they can be under some influence. So, we are going to understand everything from this particular article. Again, this is also one of the editorial on your editorial page of the Hindu newspaper. Now, our third news is actually about this recent recommendation by the government that removal of flue gas desulphurisation unit from all the coal based power plant. Now you will be surprised that why the government is doing that. Flue gas desulphurisation by name, if you don't know the technicality, you can understand by this particular phrase that it is actually based on desulphurization, means we are actually removing the sulfur dioxide from the flue gas. Flue gas is the is the total gas which emerge out if you burn anything. So whenever there is a coal based power plant, thermal power plant, there is so much flue gas, and that flue gas is not very beneficial for the environment. It is actually harmful for the environment. So that particular flue gas has so many pollutants. One of such pollutant is sulfur dioxide. So we have these units. So it was actually mandatory to have these flue gas desulphurization units in those coal power plant, but those units now are very costly. Because they are costly, so the government is actually thinking, that's why it is just a recommendation, it is not something which has been done. So the government is giving this recommendation, why don't we remove it? Okay, now we are going to understand in this particular article what is the meaning of FGD, what is the meaning of flue gas desulphurization, what is flue gas and how it happens, and why the government has come up with this idea. In the fourth article, we are going to understand about the new recommendation or new norms, new guidelines which has been given by the government recently about the special economic zones rules. Okay, so these special economic zone rules are being relaxed so that we can actually have a better semiconductor policy in our country. We all know that the government is focusing so much on semiconductor, okay, on semiconductor, and we want the semiconductor unit to be indigenously developed in our country, because the COVID-19 we have seen that okay, we can import it from China, but in the COVID-19 there was a supply chain disruption. So what if such kind of disruption happen in the future? So we need to be self-sufficient, because we are actually focusing so much on semiconductor. We already have a semiconductor policy. So this particular article is actually based on that, how we are going to change the SEZ rule to facilitate the semiconductor policy in our country. Okay, so I have given you the brief of these 4 articles. Now we are going to understand, or we are going to do, or we are going to understand 1 or 2 mains oriented answers also, right? Now let's start with our first news, that is the fire on waters. So it is a editorial part, it is the main editorial on your editorial page on the Hindu newspaper. First of all, let's understand the context, what has happened and why it is actually relevant for UPSC examination. So let's understand the context here. So recently a major fire broke on board the merchant vessel. The name of the vessel was MV Vanhai 503. Actually it is a Singapore based vessel. This is the vessel, and this vessel was actually coming from Sri Lanka and it was crossing the Arabian Sea. Now when it was crossing the Arabian Sea near the Kerala coast, this, you know, this is the Kerala, near the Kerala coast, approximately 44 nautical miles of the Azikal coast in Kerala, you can see that here at exactly at this position, the ship carrying this ship actually there is a major fire broke down. Fire was there, fire can be there for many reasons, but the issue is that this particular cargo was having so many hazardous material with it. Okay, there were so many containers, and out of those containers, few containers had hazardous material. So those hazardous material, that's why the fire broke out. First of all, second, that hazardous material is not very good for the environment as well as the marine water. Now the incidents occurred under the rough monsoon conditions. So why? What was the reason? Major reason because there was the monsoon winds were going on. We all know that the monsoon season is there, and because of those monsoon wind, the particular cargo caught fire. Now that was something that happened. Now what happened after that? It drifted towards the coast. So this fire was actually drifting towards the India's part. So it was coming towards India. Okay, the fire and the vessel was coming towards India. Obviously, if it was coming towards India, it was not very far from, the fire did not broke very far from our Kerala coast. So the moment it was drifting towards India, a joint operation by Indian Navy as well as Coast Guard managed to tow it down safely. Now, the fire, right now, the fire is under control, though hotspots remain. So the fire is under control, but some hotspots of fires are still there. But obviously, our Navy and Coast Guards are working on that. So why this particular news and what has been done by our Indian Navy and the Coast Guard is important for us. Okay, so this is not something which can come in your prelims examination. This is a news which has relevance in your mains examination. How? This particular news and the issues associated with news you can cover in GS paper 3 in disaster management part. You can actually cover it in the security part because Navy and Coast Guard is also there. Environmental part because the hazardous material is actually going to be responsible for marine pollution, and the infrastructure part, that what kind of infrastructure we have on our coast so that such kind of incidents in the future, if there are some incidents, so we can actually control over those fires, right? So this is why that is why this particular news is important from mains point of view. Now we all know that the article is also comprehending it in a very beautifully, that India's coastline actually faces 3 major risks from the merchant ships. What are the merchant ships? One are the ships that are the defense ships. Okay, for example, we have Indian Navy. Indian Navy ships are the defense ships. Other than that, obviously we have merchant ships. Merchant ship means the ships which are going to carry the trade, okay, maritime trade of our country. Now, what are the 3 issues they are facing right now? First of all, there is the issue of ship sinking, not only Indian ships, okay, sinking of the ship of any country around India's coastline. This can lead to the loss of the cargo. This can also lead to the pollution, right? If the ship is sinking, like in the recent case, the hazardous material actually it got mixed in the maritime water only. It is not good for the maritime biodiversity as well. So pollution is part of it. If there is one ship which is going to sink, then it can lead to the loss of life, loss of pollution, and it can block the sea route also. It can block the sea route if the fire is major and it has covered a large geographical area. So all the ships which were going through that particular route, they need to take or they need to change their route, which is not very easy. Fire on board ship, this can obviously endanger life, property and the environment again. There can be oil spills. Okay, oil spills are something you can read in news again and again, okay, which can seriously harm the marine ecosystem. So these are the three important issues which has been identified by the article. Now the article is saying that what actually happened, the Coast Guard, our Coast Guard, because the news is that our Navy and Coast Guard, actually they were very successful in controlling the fire that happened in these recent incidents. Now the article is talking about our capability, what kind of capability we have, okay, so that we can control such kind of condition, and we can say that such incidents are like test for us. Some other incidents and the big incidents can also happen. So such incidents actually tell us, are we enough prepared or not? Now the article is saying that the Coast Guard now equips most of its vessels for firefighting. It means we have the proper necessary infrastructure for such kind of disaster. Second, while hazardous cargo is dangerous, oil and gas carrier pose even greater risk. So we need to understand that if there is a cargo which carries oil or the gas, because that can easily lead to oil spill, so they are more dangerous for us. Now a major disaster at narrow sea routes such as Suez Canal, right, or Strait of Malacca, they can actually disrupt the trade for everyone, not only for India, for everyone. For example, if some kind of fire happened in a cargo which is actually passing the Suez Canal, which is a very narrow canal, and the fire is covering a major geographical area, then how the other ship can cross through that, and that fire can take place, then fire can continue for 2 to 3 days, and delay in the shipment for 2 to 3 is a big loss to any country. Now understand our capability. So these lines are actually telling us the seriousness of such kind of incidents. So these are not the just incidents which are happening in the sea and how we control it. It's about the disaster that can happen in the ocean and how it can impact not only in India, all the trade which is going on at the international level. So let's understand what kind of capability we have. Now India's Coast Guard vessels now have firefighting equipment, we have already mentioned. India has past experience. For example, this is not the only incidents when Indian Navy and our Coast Guard were very, were able to or successfully control the fire. In 2020, there was another fire near Sri Lanka. So VLCC New Diamond fire near Sri Lanka. It was also successfully contained by our Coast Guard and Navy. So now the success is due to ship design and safety standard. Second, we have trained personnel and interagency coordination. So this is something which we obviously have. Okay. Now the article is also highlighting the challenges. This article is actually about preparing ourselves from something which can happen in future, and such kind of incidents can act as a test for something to prepare us for something that can happen in future. Now what are the challenges? So now first of all, the hazardous cargo tracking and management is a challenge for us. We need to track. For example, if we know that around our coastline the hazardous cargo are going to cross, so our Coast Guard and Navy can be more alert at that particular point of time. Okay. Now the lack of specialized salvage operation infrastructure, we don't have that kind of infrastructure that we can be 100% foolproof. Now dependence on private operators for tugs and logistics, that is also another challenge. Response time critical in monsoon and rough sea conditions, especially these conditions. For example, if the monsoon is there, okay, and we know that the monsoon kind of condition can actually exaggerate such kind of incidents. So at that point of time, what we can do, we can be more responsible, okay, we can be more alert for such kind of incidents. Now let's understand the way forward, what can be a possible solution of it. For example, the article is saying that we need to develop coastal disaster hubs with quick response team. So we cannot sit at the coast and wait for such kind of incidents to happen. Then we will go there, rush there, we are going to control the fire. Now the article is saying that no, why don't we have this coastal disaster hub inside the ocean only? Need not to, you know, sit and wait at the coast. Now we can invest in salvage vessel, helicopters and drones, so that we can have our own personal infrastructure or the government infrastructure. Now strict monitoring of hazardous material on board ships. For example, if any hazardous ships is going around our coastal ship, we can actually track it. Okay, track it. Now stimulation and joint drills between the Navy, Coast Guard and civilian ports can actually help us out if such kind of incidents or something that bigger than that can happen in the future. Okay, so let's understand what kind of question UPSC can ask out of this particular news. You try to write the answer as well. With increasing maritime trade and traffic, we all know that, okay, India's coastline is exposed to new types of peacetime disasters such as onboard fire, oil spills and the shipwrecks. Discuss the preparedness of Indian maritime agencies. So here you are going to write the what kind of capability our Indian Navy and the Coast Guard has in dealing with such challenges. So the first part you can easily, you know, do from this particular news. Also suggest measures to enhance the coastal management capabilities. Now here you can write what we have written in the way forward part, right? So this question can easily be done by using this particular news article. This is how we are going to, you know, extract the mains oriented matter from our articles. Now let's come to our next article, which is actually about the aircraft accident investigation. So major article. So article is very large. I am going to give you the crux of the article, which is important for your mains examination. Now the article is the India needs a sincere aircraft accident in our country. So let me tell you the crux only. First of all, India's system for investigating aircraft accident lacks, this is being identified by the article, it lacks independence and transparency. Now let's understand why it lacks independence and transparency. First let's understand the independence. Though the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, okay, AAIB, so this is actually the agency which is responsible for the investigation. Now this agency is supposed to be autonomous, but this autonomous means it can be independent, autonomous, it can directly report to the parliament, right? But it is not so. It is controlled by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, right, under the Department of Civil Aviation. Now which also regulates the airline as well as appoint the airline officials, which can actually lead to the conflict of interest. So first of all, there is a issue of the independence, because this agency is the part of Ministry of Civil Aviation, and the ministry is the one which actually controlling the airline, regulating the, responsible for regulating the airlines as well as appointment of the higher officials in these airlines. What if there is one particular official is actually responsible for this incident? Let's understand that. Now he is actually can be protected by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, right? So Ministry of Civil Aviation is an organization which appointed this particular official who was responsible. Now this ministry only, they control the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. Now this ministry can put pressure on AAIB so that the responsibility which should be fall on the official can be actually swayed away, right? This can actually happen. So that's why there is a lack of independence as well as transparency, because there is a conflict of interest. So what the article is suggesting? Article is suggesting that why don't we make AAIB an independent agency which is going to do its investigation and report directly to a parliament. Now how it is relevant for us in mains examination? So in mains, this is the issue of governance. In GS paper 2, we can say that it's a issue of transparency as well as accountability, right? So now Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau is meant to be a statutory and autonomous body, but in practice it lacks independence. So it is not even independent, it comes under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So this is something which actually hinders the independence and transparency when it comes to such investigation. Now, what actually happen in these investigations? So these investigations often blame pilots only, because the pilots are no more. So it is very easy to put all the blame on the pilots because they are no more, and the people who are already living and the sitting in their offices, they can easily get away with it, okay, to close cases quickly, because it is easy to close. Because if we are going to put the blame on the pilot is not here to, you know, even run their cases, while the deeper systematic issues such as poor oversight, regulatory lapses and faulty procedures are being ignored. Many past reports such as the Air Marshal J.K. Seth report revealed such flaws but were suppressed. So we already have such reports which mention that pilots were being blamed, and the oversight, regulatory lapses and faulty procedure, they were sidelined in the investigation. Now, even though the purpose of the accident investigation is to prevent future tragedies, okay, findings are misused in criminal trials and the real accountability is missing. So this is what the article is actually highlighting. Okay, this create a culture of blame shifting and cover-ups. If we are going to have this culture of blame shifting and cover-ups, then such kind of incidents can happen in future also. Which is actually not good governance. This is actually an example of bad governance. So that's why whenever we talk about the governance, so whenever there is any kind of investigation agency, that agency need to have its own autonomy. So independence for an investigating agency is very, very important, especially why we are talking about the investigation in aircraft accident, because in the past we have seen that such incidents, the responsibility were actually responsibility was put on the pilots only, and the other factors were ignored. So this time we don't want, because this was the major accident in the history of India's aircraft. Now, to fix this, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau and DGCA, Director General of Civil Aviation, they should be made truly independent, directly reporting to Parliament. This is actually the solution. This is not something which is already there, it's the solution, a suggestion by the author of this article. So there is a pressing need for honest, transparent investigation that prioritize truth and safety over protecting institution or reputations of people in general. Okay, so now I hope you understood this article. This article was something about the autonomy, accountability, responsibility part of. You can use it in a case study in the ethics also, and you can, this question can be a part of your GS paper 2 as well. Now let's come to our third article. So this third article is about what are the flue gas desulphurization units. So why this particular news is there in our The Hindu newspaper today. So first we need to understand the context. So recently a committee of experts chaired by the principal scientific advisor. So there was a committee was constituted which was actually headed by the principal scientific advisor. The advisor only recommended that India needs to do away with this decade-long policy of mandating flue gas desulphurization unit in all coal-based thermal power plants. So this is something which is being recommended. It is not something which has been done. It is just being recommended now. What is the recommendation? Now there is no need for our thermal power plant to have these flue gas desulphurization unit. It actually was there, it was mandatory. It started in 2005, and it with the time the government wanted to make it mandatory, right? So why it is relevant? This is relevant for your GS paper 3 when it comes to the topic of environment or the topic of energy and infrastructure. Now let's understand what is the whole meaning of this article. First of all, India had a policy since 2015, sorry, not 2005, 2015, requiring all coal-based thermal power plants to install this flue gas desulphurization unit. Okay, why these units? These units are there so that they can remove the sulfur dioxide part from the outcome of the thermal power plant, from the flue gas that is a byproduct of the thermal power plant. to reduce sulfur dioxide emissions, which is a key contributor to air pollution and the PM 2.5 level as well. Now, what is flue gas? Let me give you one definition also. It is actually the hot gas that comes out of the chimneys or the stacks of the power plants. From the factory also it can come. It comes from the engine also if you are driving a car, when fossil fuel like coal, oil or natural gas are burned. So what all is there in flue gas? Flue gas actually contain carbon dioxide also. So it's not only the sulfur dioxide that consisted of flue gas. So carbon dioxide is also part of it. Sulfur dioxide is also part of it. NOx, nitrogen oxide is also part of it. Particulate matters PM 2.5 or PM 10 are also part of it. Water vapor along with that, traces of heavy material or ashes. So all these material together makes flue gas. And why these units are necessary? So these FGD units are there so that they can remove the sulfur dioxide part from the flue gas, right? Now, I hope you understood what is the meaning of this flue gas desulphurization. Again, I have written it again. So it is a technology used to remove the sulfur dioxide from the flue gas, which is very hazardous or dangerous if it is going to be released in our environment. Okay. Now, these are essential because they remove SO2 from flue gas. There are various techniques from which we can remove the sulfur dioxide. Now, the techniques such as wet limestone slurry, dry sorbent injections and the seawater treatment. So these are the few methods. These are the few methods. You can actually remember the names of these methods because these are in news. Now UPSC can ask you the question that such methods were in news. So these methods are being utilized for what? So the answer would be that these methods are being used to remove the sulfur from the flue gas, or you can say that it is being used for flue gas desulphurization. But now the problem is that only 39 out of 537 plants. In India, we have 537 thermal power plants, and out of these only 39 plants have these flue gas desulphurization units. Now, why is that? It is because it is very, very costly. It is a costly affair. So this is the only reason why the chief scientific advisor, the principal scientific advisor is recommending that we need to do away this mandatory part of installing FGD units. Now, but the critics argue that if we are going to remove the FGD requirement, then India's clean air goals and the public health is going to be jeopardized, right? Now, with FGD increases cost slightly, okay, experts say that it is a manageable price for cleaner air and long-term sustainability. So what is the whole takeaway from this article? First, from prelims point of view, you should note what is the meaning of flue gas desulphurization, what is the meaning of flue gas, what is the requirement which has done, what are the requirement which was actually put up on these thermal power plants in 2015, that it should make mandatory for every thermal power plant to have these such kind of units so that they can remove sulfur from the flue gas. But now government is taking a different stance. Actually, it is just a recommendation, but it can happen also. It can be applicable as well. Now, let's come to our next article. Next article is about how we are going to improve our semiconductor policy. Now, why has the special economic zones rule has been relaxed? So this article is all about that. So let's understand it. First of all, let's understand the context here. The context is about semiconductor manufacturing boost via SCZ reform. So the answer is why have the SCZs has been relaxed, rules has been relaxed. So why we are having this SCZ reforms? So the reason is the semiconductor manufacturing boost. To give the boost of the indigenous semiconductor manufacturing, we are actually relaxing our rules. And this particular news is relevant for your GS part 3. Question can come under the economy part, it can come under the infrastructure part also, it can come under your science and technology part also. So what is the story so far? Now, recently the government has been taking various steps to boost the production of the semiconductor and electronics in India. Okay, we have the semiconductor policy. Okay, in a bid to reduce the dependence on import. Why we are reducing our dependence on import? Because some previous measures include the Semicon India program, which was launched in 2022. Now the government has relaxed the key rules. Okay, we are going to understand which rules are being relaxed, so that we can further encourage the domestic semiconductor industry. So why are the semiconductor important? First of all, understand that semiconductor power all modern electronic devices. So whatever electronic device you have with you, in which you will find such kind of chips, okay, and these chips are actually made up of only semiconductors. Okay, these chips are made of semiconductor. They are essential for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is an upcoming thing, and we need to have a proper, raw material to have a successful AI operations in our country, along with the automation and digitization. They are the strategic for economic and national security as well. Now, why domestic manufacturing? Why can't we just import the semiconductor units, semiconductor from outside? Now, the article is saying that yes, we import semiconductor units from China. So China dominates the global semiconductor production, but the COVID-19 has actually exposed the risk of the supply chain concentration. Because of the COVID-19, supply chain disruption happened, and we can see that it is actually in our benefit only that we have our own domestic semiconductor industry. Why? Because it is very, very important, okay, for the future generation, because the future is dependent on artificial intelligence and the automation, etc. Okay, national security as well as the economy is going to be dependent on that. So digitization is something which is inevitable. We need to proceed, we need to be very developed when it comes to digitization. For that we need semiconductor. For semiconductor, we cannot rely on other countries. If something is so critical for us, we cannot rely on other countries all the time. So we need to have our own domestic semiconductor industry. To have such kind of environment, this SCZ rules are being relaxed. So now we are going to understand how what are the relaxation which is being given. First of all, we are reducing the minimum land requirement from 50 hectare to 10 hectare. Before that, we have these 2006 rules. Okay, these are the SCZ rule, and we are amending it. And by the amendment, we are saying that the minimum requirement, SCZ is, what is SCZ actually? It is the special economic zones. These are the special boundary areas. So these are the particular areas which are known as SCZs. Here you will have these manufacturing part also. Here you can have residential area also. Okay, and the government actually gives subsidies if you are going to establish such kind of SCZs. Okay, so you can have a proper industrial units. So that's why these SCZ. So this is the meaning of SCZ. But there are some rules related to it. One such rule is that area should be 50 hectares. Okay, the whole area, it should not be less than 50 hectares, but now it has been relaxed. So now the requirement is only 10 hectare. You only need 10 hectare to start your own SCZ. Okay, okay, one person cannot start, there can be many people who can invest in something like that. Now, second, allowing non encumbrance free land. What is the meaning of that? If a land is encumbrance free, it means the land has some legal or financial issue attached to it. So earlier, the land on which the SCZ unit can be set up, it should be free from any kind of legal or financial issue. It means the land record, everything should be clear if you want to start it. But it is actually one of the major hindrance why there are very less SCZ unit in our country. Why? Because we all know that there are so many states where we don't have a proper system of land records. So there are so many disputes. So the lands are mostly disputed in our country. But this time the rules are relaxed and the government has given green flag even if a particular land has some kind of financial or legal issue attached to it. Third, they are permitting the domestic sales for good from SCZ after duty payment. So one of the rule when it comes to establishing SCZ unit is that whatever product which is going to be produced in this unit, it should be exported directly from these particular unit. But now the government is saying that it is okay, you can actually sell it in India as well. Okay, you need not to export everything, you need to sell, you can sell in India also, because we want Indianization. Along with that, but you need to have a proper payment of your duties. So these changes aim to attract investment and to speed up SEZ approval, so that we can strengthen the domestic supply chain. Okay, so that's why these SEZ rules are being relaxed, right? So this was all about today's The Hindu analysis. I hope you understood the articles. If you have any query, you can ask in comment section also. So till then, thank you so much and have a very, very nice day.